Welcome to this meeting of the Maidenhead Development Management Committee on the 17th of July 2025. My name is Councillor Sian Martin and I will be chairing this meeting. This meeting has been held in person via Zoom and streamed live to the public on YouTube. I remind all attendees that participation in the meeting indicates consent to the audio and video being streamed live and acknowledgement that after the meeting it will continue to be available in the public domain. We are not expecting the fire alarm to sound this evening. However, if it does, please may I ask you to leave in an orderly fashion and rendezvous across the road outside of the library next to the fountain. Firstly, it would be useful if all voting members and officers could introduce themselves so that the public are aware of who is in the meeting and the role they're undertaking. So I'm Councillor Sian Martin. I'll just go to my left.
I'm Adrian Waite, the Assistant Director of Planning.
I'm David Brett, Senior Planning Officer.
Alison Long, North Area Team Leader.
Member of the panel.
Member of the panel.
Hi, good evening. Councillor Jack Douglas, voting member of the panel.
Mikey Lloyd, Democratic Service Officer and Clerk to the Committee. And just to note as well, we have our Legal Officer, Anthony Lennon, online as well.
And Louvain as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. I request that meeting participants do not speak unless I specifically invite you to do so. Once I've invited you to speak, before you do so, please state your name and the capacity in which you are speaking if appropriate. I will also ask officers to speak at appropriate times. If any individual attempts to disrupt the meeting, I'm able to use my powers in the Constitution to adjourn the meeting or have the individual removed. I would also like to remind councillors that to improve our time and effectiveness as a committee, I would ask you to please limit the repetition of points or questions which have already been raised by others. Where possible, please forward all new points or questions which you would like raised during your request to speak. We will now start on the agenda items. Firstly, do we have any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair, we have two apologies tonight. We have an apology from Councillor Taylor and an apology from Councillor Gurchasing.
Thank you. And do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Douglas?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to flag up, I have spoken to the applicant on the second item today, but I'm here with an open mind, happy to join in the discussion and vote.
Next agenda item is the minutes. Are we happy to approve the minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 19th of June, 2025? We've also got the part 2 minutes as well. Are we happy with those to approve? Councillor Walters?
If I may, that planning appeal on the Holyport film studios, what a success it was for us all. And I think I've already done this once, but I'd like to do it in public. Thank the officers. You know, we're all having a go at the officers, but I mean, on that particular one, they pulled out the stops. They got a wonderful counsel. They got a chap who gave evidence on need, which was excellent. I can't remember his name offhand, but it was just a successful round. We were all in doubt, however strong the case was, but our team put up Royal Borough put up a very good show, and thank you.
So that brings me on to the next agenda item number 4, which is Long Lane Farm, Ascot Road in Holyport. If I could hand over to David for the presentation, please. And when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Item 1 has been called in to be decided at this committee. The proposal consists of the access to Long Lane Farm off Ascot Road. The application seeks full part retrospective planning permission for the repositioning and widening of the existing access. This application is part retrospective as the access has already been widened without planning permission. The access is used for a mixed-use site comprising of agricultural, storage and distribution. 3 objections have been received following the publication of the committee report. These relate to matters concerning highway safety, the natural environment and harm to the green belt. These matters have been covered in the committee report. The site is located within the green belt and it is outlined in red as shown on the location plan. The access is located 140 metres past the junction of Ascot Road and Pally Street. The surrounding area is predominantly rural, consisting of farmland with some residential development located along Ascot Road to the north of the site. This application is essentially the resubmission of alterations to the access that were previously approved by officers in February 2022 under application ref 21025578. Following the approval, the access has been widened with the alterations not carried out in accordance with the details approved under that application. This led to intervention from the council's planning enforcement team, concluding that due to the unauthorised alterations that had taken place, permission 21025578 was not considered to have been lawfully carried out. A further planning application for alterations to the access was submitted under application reference 23028890. This application was subsequently refused under delegated powers in October 2024 due to highway safety concerns and failure to demonstrate biodiversity enhancements and a biodiversity net gain. In responding to this this application, the Council's Highways Development Management Team requested that the access approved under application 212578 be implemented. The application before you now seeks approval of the details that were found previously acceptable by officers under application reference 21025578. To give you an idea of the alterations that have taken place, the aerial image on the left-hand side shows you the access as it appeared in February 2021, with the aerial image on the right showing the access as it appeared in June 2024. You will note that the access has been widened with vegetation and soft landscaping cut back to allow for the lane of additional hard standing. To further illustrate the extent of the alterations, the image on the top of the slide shows the access from April 2021, with the bottom image showing the access in June 2023. From here, you can clearly see the extent of the hedgerow that has been removed, along with a lane of hard standing. Today, the access appears as the bottom image with some apparent damage to the hard standing that has been laid between 2021 and 2023. To summarise, officers have attributed substantial weight to the approval of application reference 21025578. At the time of that application, the proposal was considered acceptable in planning matters, such as its impact upon the greenbelt, design and appearance. It would therefore be considered unreasonable of officers to draw a different conclusion on these matters, given the recency of the previous approval, even when considering the intervening changes in local and national planning policy. With regards to highway safety, the proposal is considered a betterment of the existing situation, subject to a number of highways-related conditions as set out in the committee report. An ecological assessment and biodiversity net gain details have been submitted for this application, allowing officers to secure an on-site net gain in biodiversity. This will be secured by condition to any approval. Officers therefore recommend approval of this application subject to the conditions set out in the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Before I go to the floor, we've got one speaker on this one, and that's the Councillor Louvain Keane from Parish Council, and she's online.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Louvain.
Do you wish me to start?
Sorry, yes, I can hear you perfectly. So please go ahead.
Good.
You've got 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. Long Lane Farm under previous owners was used for beef farming and, as you said, in the Greenbelt. The new owners, as per their public Facebook site, is the home of great machinery, sales, service parts, importers and distributors, and mechanical handling and processing machinery worldwide. It's not agricultural, more like industrial. Residents on Ascot Road are being impacted not just nearby, but those living along it with very large HGVs and their trailers going to the site by Holyport Conservation Area and past Holyport College. These large vehicles are not able to go along the road without going over the white line, which means the traffic is stopped as they cannot get by safely or having to go on the verges on Holyport Green, often causing the vehicles to reverse. And this is before they get to site. Ascot Road may be an A road, but it's very narrow and not suitable for HGVs or high-wide vehicles, hence why there is a restriction in place for 7.5-ton HGV access only. When these long, very large vehicles get to site, they cannot turn into the driveway in one go. So trying to get in, they hold up the traffic on a dangerous bed near Paley Street, blocking residential entranceways, etc. And this is the same when exiting, sometimes reversing, creating a hazard and endangering the safety of others on the road. Councillors, Highways were unhappy at the application, asking for proof that these HGVs could exit and enter without crossing the white lines, which they cannot do. And this has been witnessed by many using Ascot Road and not just by residents living along it. There is absolutely no way these oversized HGVs and trailers could do that, and evidence of this has been proved. Bray Parish Council supported Highways on this retrospective application and recommended refusal. We ask councillors support residents who live near and along Ascot Road, students from Holyport College and residents who try to cross it, and ask that they help protect Holyport's conservation too and refuse this
1
application.
minute remaining.
As this site cannot already accommodate the current side of the vehicles, nor can Ascot Road without endangering the lives of those who live and also use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. So I can open this up to the floor now. Firstly, does anybody have any questions for the officers before we enter the debate? Councillor Walters.
What the chairman of the parish planning says is true. These present owners, occupiers, have got away with so much already. It's all retrospective. You just have to read the Highways Authority report, and there's everything wrong about it. No details are provided on the land today activities. There's a whole stream, which I'm sure you read, Chairman, and the officers have read. And I think it's just so unreasonable to give these applicants permission in a thing that's quite different to what was originally envisaged to happen there. The repair of agricultural machinery. There was what do they call those farms? Not eco, the other word. What do they call those things? You know, where you get that food, the good food from. What do they call it? Yeah, one organic. There was an organic farm there, and the access was perfectly all right for that. But making this access, you know, tearing all those hedges down along the Ascot Road. Also, I've seen it myself. The thing they want to get in there to, you know, do all this machinery work are just too large, and it's perfectly wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It really is, and it'll ruin that part of Holyport, just outside. Well, I wouldn't say just outside, but conservation, but near that school. There are already problems with the school. I mean, it's not a planning reason necessarily, but there's certainly biodiversity and all that is, and I wonder whether there's anything. I want to at least defer this application, at least that. But promoting a sustainable is I was going to suggest. I saw it in the report somewhere. What was it? Oh yes. And there's all sorts of things about lighting we don't know about. Application, there's section 191. I'm not absolutely sure what that is, but it says to test the lawfulness should be made to receive a formal constitution from the council. I mean, I don't want something so bad to happen up there for the environment, for highway safety, which, I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons on the highway thing, but it looks as though we've been, it's appeared as though they bulldozed into this by all these, you know, they didn't do it this time, then they weren't registered. You can game the system, that we all know, if you really want to. And I would refuse on this application on grounds of highway, green belt, if you like, because tearing all those hedges down along the Ascot Road and anything else the officers can think of. It's just wrong. I know it is. Thank you.
I've got no other speakers at the moment. I don't know if the officers wanted to come back, but firstly, councillor Waters, you mentioned in your speech just now that you wanted to defer and refuse. And I'm not clear if that's a motion that you put forward at all.
Yeah, sorry, I mean, let me hear the rest of the.
Okay, I can come back to you. I've got councillor Hill wants to speak first, so then maybe let's go to him and then we can go to the officers. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm in agreement with Councillor Waters with my highways and transport hat on. The highways officer's comments are by no means conclusive that this is a good idea. I express serious reservations in the highways officer's report, agreeing with them, I might add, that these large vehicles are, shall I say, a design which results in lengthy reversing movements to vehicles reversing to and from the A330 would not be acceptable. The A330 is a very, very busy road. I'm currently looking at helping Holyport College students get to and from the school with the help of highways officers because the road is so fast. And I was made the point quite publicly, we're looking seriously at trying to reduce the speed on that road because it's such a dangerous road in part of it. And this just doesn't look right. With large vehicles, if they can't get round with ease, then frankly, they shouldn't be coming to and from an A road that currently is marked at 40 miles an hour. I know people drive faster, they break the speed limit. We know that, but this does feel like an accident waiting to happen. So I just can't go with it without highways officers fully endorsing it and being completely comfortable, which clearly from their report in the planning document, they're not. So, yeah, I'm in support of Councillor Waters' comments on safety grounds, I might add.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hill. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question first. What does it, when you've got a part retrospective application like this, sorry for my naivety here, what does it mean when we talk about commencement conditions? Are we talking about commencement of the remaining works? I mean, like condition 8 says prior to first use of the approved access. We're not anticipating a stop in use at any point, are we?
Okay.
Normally when you're talking part retrospective application and you do conditions, you would be talking about the proposed bits of the development. So if you said no development, you'd normally be talking about the proposed bits rather than the bits that have actually been carried out. There are certain bits perhaps where we would need to look at tweaking the conditions. So it might be we would want to, for example, if there's one about the use of the access, put on a time frame for that if members were minded to grant at the end of the debate rather than a no use, because that might be a bit clearer that we want something done within a certain timescale of the decision rather than it being unclear.
Okay, we come back to that at the end then if there's any sense that it's going to be approved. Okay. I mean, just looking at the report, my first impressions were that, you know, it's got officer support. It feels like it's going to do more good than harm to approve it, but I'm also hearing my colleagues opposite there. I wonder if you've got I mean, the highways comments have not raised any safety concerns. Is that correct? I mean, just looking at the appendices, my unfortunately naive impression, sorry, defer to your wisdom, Councillor Hill, is that it looked like the changes would actually improve highway safety. Is that a perception you have?
Come back to. Thank you, David.
I think the highways approach was mainly based on comparing it with the existing arrangement at the site. And sorry, yeah, so it is mainly on assessing what they've currently got at the site with the existing situation, what's currently been laid and the visibility of the access from that perspective. So again, with the details under this being found acceptable in 2022, it was considered that, yeah, this, I think as you're saying, this would be an improvement and betterment over the existing situation. And then, yeah, I think that's what came across in the 2023 application, where highways encouraged the applicant to actually carry out the 2021 permission as approved, which again is the same application we're looking at today.
Okay, I mean, on that basis, I'm not personally comfortable refusing it on highways grounds. So the Bray Parish Council and Councillor Walters have both raised a question mark over the existing use of the site and whether it's approved. Can we have an officer comment on whether that's outside of the scope of this discussion, please?
Yes, I'll cover that off. So there is an enforcement investigation in relation to the existing use of the site and whether that's lawful or not, and that's currently subject to an enforcement investigation. But this application in itself is limited to the proposals for the changes to the access. So this application isn't seeking permission for that use, and they're almost two separate matters in a way, and we can't conjoin them. And I do think that's a bit of what's happened, in that we've got a situation where a couple of years ago, highways considered the access and felt it was acceptable. There's nothing fundamentally unacceptable about the changes to the access arrangement. I think the concerns that are coming about are with the use that's going on the site, which is subject to an enforcement investigation. One might have wanted different access arrangements, but I think it's really important we don't conjoin the two. There's nothing unacceptable about this access. If the use that's on the site was found to be unlawful and subject to an application to regularise that, it may be that as part of that you would want to see further changes to the access.
Would it be all right if I ask for a clarification just on that? So, or maybe just for you to repeat part of it. There's a lot of noise and it's a bit difficult to hear you. Did you say there is an ongoing enforcement investigation in progress? I mean, obviously we don't want to ignore unauthorised changes of use. There is an enforcement issue there potentially, but what sort of timescale are we talking about if that's ongoing?
So, I mean, at the moment, it's at paragraph 5.8 of the report.
Oh,
so there was a planning contravention notice served on the 4th of July. So that's only 13 days ago. Oh, 2024. So I'm getting my dates mixed up. So that was by Brian. It is still under investigation, but I don't know what the timescale is off the top of my head. Give me a moment to have a think and look at some emails. It's paragraph 5.8. It was July 2024, the PCM.
Yeah, Councillor Walters, please.
Yeah, I just wonder what paragraph is 5.8, was it?
5.8, yes. So I come back to you, Councillor Walters, then go to Councillor Hill in the
Yes,
meantime.
yeah.
Councillor Hill?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I'm just rereading paragraph 5.8. And the planning officers and legal have to correct me if I'm wrong. Shouldn't we really be establishing the use of the site before this planning application comes before council? I mean, the highways officers have made their view very, very clear in the report, and there is an enforcement action on the site, which does imply that there may be vehicles larger than originally intended for that site and originally intended for that access. Surely the enforcement action should take its course. The usage of the site should be established, and then this application should come back or not, depending on what takes place. Isn't that really the way this should be done? It seems like we're doing it the wrong way. We're almost, if we let this through, facilitating potentially, but not certainly, but we could be facilitating a breach of planning permission and an inappropriate use of the site by virtue of granting access. Please comment, officers.
Go ahead.
Yeah, As members will know, we've got a duty to consider the applications that are submitted before us and make decisions on them. So we can't not determine or not deal with an application because we would like to see something different happen first. There's no prospect of a decision on this access application allowing a use on another part of the site, because that's not something that's contained within the application. I think we've got the added complexity for members that this is pretty much identical to previous decisions that have been made. So we do have to be consistent with previous decisions that the committees and the local authorities made on those applications. I can appreciate the sentiment, but we do have a duty to determine the applications that are submitted to us.
Want to come back, Councillor Hill?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, yeah, I get that. I've been doing this long enough to know that. My worry here is the comments from the highways officers with large vehicles reversing out onto the A330. And it's there in the report to see, you know, they're not making it up. That I would have thought was a really serious problem. I mean, vehicles are moving down that road at, you know, at quite some speed, up to 40 miles an hour if they're driving legally. And to have a large vehicle, you know, going backwards and forwards really is not acceptable. So even if we do consider the application as it is, I for one, right now, unless someone can persuade me, would be minded to go against the officer's recommendation and refuse it. Unless the access can be made such that vehicles, you know, the larger vehicles do not cross the white line and do not perform these sorts of manoeuvres onto what is an A road and a very busy trunk road in the borough. And it is a very busy trunk road in the borough. So that's the worry I have. Thank you.
Councillor Waters?
Where, you know, the local knowledge does count, hopefully, and common sense. In the PPF section 9, they talk about promoting sustainable transport, and that covers this. I've actually seen this, and so has the chairman of the Brave Parish Council. They come past my house. I know what sort of vehicles they are, and they do have to come out into the road. And that particular point at Touch and End, which is connected to the A304, which goes down to Florence, it was so bad that the officers decided at one stage to put traffic lights. So it is a very dangerous spot. And not only that, it's the environmental damage it does as well, tearing all these things down. And looking through the different applications, it's sort of getting what they want cut by cut. The only thing they want to do now is intensify the use on that site, which is pretty horrible anyway from the people who live nearby, particularly the lady who is what we call our honey lady. That's where he has a whole of, honey bees that keeps them. And that's right next to the end. And she complains to me, all she hears is banging and crashing, which is all new on a major industrial scale. So we approve this at the same time as obviously common sense. Sometimes you've got to use common sense and practical knowledge that it will, the use on that site will increase. There's no point in having all this bloody great, all this stuff going into the site without them wanting to do that. So it's obvious. And in the view of the support I've had so far, I will refuse on this application on those grounds. And I quote, if you want all the quotes, I'll give you those. If you want them, the PPF and all that.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Just to be clear, both Councillor Hill and yourself have mentioned that you'd be minded to refuse. I don't know if that's an actual motion that either of you have laid down at this stage.
I support Councillor Waters' motion to refuse on the grounds of highway safety.
So Councillor
bearing in
Waters,
mind
you
the
are
whole-
proposing to refuse, and then Councillor Hilton second.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Based on the highways officers'
Okay.
concerns. If those concerns weren't there,
Uh-huh.
then I'd be happy to approve, but the idea of large vehicles manoeuvring onto the A330 doesn't fill me with joy.
It's just dangerous.
Thank you both. Councillor Douglas, you had your, you were in the queue as well. Did you want to say something?
Is that right? Thank you, Chair. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think I may be leaning towards a different view personally. So, I mean, I'm persuaded that we shouldn't be blurring the lines between what is clearly the unauthorised use of the wider site, and those vehicles are associated with that use. And, you know, we've got benefits and harms of this application before us today. And I just don't personally think that's a common sense issue in this case. It's a planning issue. We've got this application and I feel we need to determine it. But I do sympathise very much with what yourself, Leo, and the Bray Parish Councillor said, and also what Jeff is raising about high risk concerns, which also seemed to me to be linked to the unauthorised use rather than the widening and changes that are being proposed here. So, I mean, yeah, so just on the application, of course, there are harms. There's always harms. There's benefits and harms. And if I'm just looking at that and trying to weigh them up, just take the hedgerow for the example, they're knocking out more hedgerow down the A330, but overall there's, I can't remember which paragraph it is, like 26% increase in hedgerow overall in the changes. So if they go ahead with them, the benefits are outweighing the harms, and on that basis, you know, I feel approval's more pro. I'm also worried about trying to guess the future. You know, we've got, if we refuse an application like this and then there's a change of use down the line to something that is authorised or back to agricultural, I mean, maybe Officer Commoners, am I correct that we basically also put an unfair time bomb on the future users of whatever third party that might be a different owner by then, who knows? But they're left with this enforcement situation where they've got a retrospective planning that's not granted, and our enforcement team are going to have to be engaged on that as well. Is that correct, Adrian?
So I'm just trying to think. So I missed half of the question because of the noise. So.
I think Councillor Douglas said he's worried about blurring the future should the application, you know, be a different
If we get
application, you know, a different business in the future, and therefore.
If that turns back into a farm tomorrow after we refuse, they've got this unauthorised use and a rejection of a you know, regularisation hanging over them.
Well, I suppose I would probably look at it a different way. So I suppose we're sitting here at the moment, and what I can't tell you 100% is the use on the site is unauthorised or it isn't, because there's an enforcement investigation going on. So it may be that the enforcement team conclude that there's a breach and therefore there's action against that. It may be that the enforcement team conclude that actually the use on site is lawful, because things at farms are quite often diversified farms, and therefore large machinery is quite a current thing. From my perspective, I think where I would have to go is which of the access arrangements is the safest or best. And I suppose that's where you've got the original narrow lane, which was permitted. You've got the unauthorised access that's there at the moment, and you've got the proposed access that's before members tonight. And I suppose the question I would ask is, the unauthorised access at the moment is unlawful, and we think that causes concerns. So the question I would probably ask is, which is safer and which is better, the original access that was there or the access that's proposed tonight, is probably how my brain would go to phrasing, thinking about this.
Well, look, I'm unhappy if there is an unauthorised use, and I'm whatever the enforcement team conclusion they come to, I'm glad they're taking the action and looking into it, and that's the right thing to do. But on this application, I mean, I'm persuaded we should grant it. So personally, I'll put forward a motion and we just have both motions on the table and see which one carries.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Councillor Waters, do you want to press your microphone? Yeah.
There's a footpath which no longer exists down to that farm as well, which no longer exists. I mean, this is just common sense, this thing. It looks terrible, this thing. And what they're doing there is what they want to do. They want to not use it as a farm, which they bought it as a farm. They want to use it as an industrial complex. And it's going on, it's causing a great deal of disturbance. The people who live there are doing agricultural things like bee lady, who's right next door. And I've seen the trucks come out, these damn great articulated lorries come out and going. And I know that quarter, like everybody here knows that, I'm sure, touch and end. It couldn't be a more dangerous spot. There's a curve on it. A lot of it's blind. They put a glass thing there, you know, a mirror thing there, one stage. And it's just common sense that, you know, not to do this. I have to say it that way because you could so easily sort of tie it in and say it's all right, but it isn't all right. It's all wrong from beginning to end. I represent my residents there, you know. I know quite a bit about planning, but I'm not altogether applying that now. I am, because there's section 9 of it, and I can go through all the things we want to hear all. But, you know, I'm just trying to, from a common sense point of view, for a change. We mustn't lose sense of that. So much of that nowadays really is process and all this stuff. Forgive me.
Thank you. I mean, for me, I think there's quite a few gaps in the highways side of things, and that doesn't make me overly comfortable. So I'm happy to go to the vote. I've got no other speakers.
Thank you, Chair. So we have the motion on the table that's proposed by Councillor Waters, seconded by Councillor Hill, to refuse the planning application due to highway officer safety concerns. I'll now take a vote if councillors are for refusal, against refusal, or abstaining from the vote. Councillor Douglas. Councillor Hill. For. Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Waters. So that carries, Chair, so the planning permission is refused.
Thank you. Brings me on to our next agenda item, which is land at 6 and 8 Florence Avenue, Maidenhead. If I could hand to David, please, for the presentation on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Item 2 has been called in to be decided at this committee. The proposal consists of land to the rear of 6 and 8 Florence Avenue, Maidenhead, and seeks full planning permission for the erection of a 2-storey, 1-bedroom passive house dwelling following the demolition of the existing single-storey garage. The application also includes the relocation of the existing vehicular access. There is one update to this item, which consists of a letter from the applicant in response to the contents of the committee report that was received today. The site is outlined in red, shown on the proposed location plan. The site is located on the outside dogleg of Florence Avenue, with 4A to the north of the site, and the existing dwellings at 6 and 8 Florence Avenue to the south of the site. The immediate surrounding area consists predominantly of 2-storey dwellings, with St. Luke's School located 100 metres to the west of the site. This application follows the refusal of application 2103365 in May 2022, which sought the conversion of the existing garage to a 1-bed dwelling. This application was refused due to perceived harm to the character of the area, contrary to the general grain and the pattern of development. The application was also refused for matters relating to flood risk, sustainability and highway safety. The appeal of this decision was dismissed, with the reasons for refusal upheld apart from the 4th reason relating to highway safety. Turning to the constraints of the site, the main constraint is that the site is located within flood zone 3. The MPPF approach is to steer new development to areas with the lowest risk of flooding from any source, using the sequential test. Policy NR1 of the Borough Local Plan also encourages applications within the relevant flood zones to carry out a sequential test and demonstrate that there are no reasonably available sites for the proposed development in areas at a lower risk of flooding. A sequential test has been carried out by the applicant. However, upon review, officers considered that the sequential test does not adequately demonstrate that there are no reasonably available sites within the borough with a low risk of flooding. Furthermore, the Environment Agency have reviewed the flood risk assessment provided for this application and object on the basis that the assessment fails to properly assess floodplain storage compensation, demonstrating that the development will not increase flood risk elsewhere. Turning to the design and layout, the proposed dwelling will be located largely upon the footprint of the existing garage, with a set off from a boundary to 4A Florence Avenue of 1.7 metres. The site would benefit from one off-street vehicle parking space within the covered carport, with a rear garden of approximately 100 metres squared. As demonstrated on the proposed floor plans, the ground floor would consist of a kitchen, living and dining room with downstairs WC. The first floor consists of a double bedroom, bathroom, storage cupboard, and an additional storage within the roof space above the covered parking bay. The proposed elevations indicate that the external surfaces of the dwelling will consist of red brick at ground floor level with composite cladding at the first floor. The proposed solar panels can also be seen on the south-facing roof slope, which would face towards the existing dwelling at 6 and 8 Florence Avenue. Officers consider the appearance of the dwelling reflects the varied character of dwellings along Florence Avenue. Regarding the pattern of development, the plot reflects that of the development refused under application reference 210335. It is acknowledged that the proposed dwelling is 2 stories, reflecting the immediate context of the surrounding 2-storey dwellings. However, the proposal is not considered to overcome the matters raised in the refusal and dismissal of the subsequent appeal. Regarding the consistency of plot sizes and harm to the urban grain. As refusal reference 210335, the development is considered contrary to and at odds with the general grain and pattern of development in the vicinity. It is acknowledged that, as shown on the screen, 4A, 31A and 31B Florence Avenue are unique in terms of size and layout, but these are not considered to represent a characteristic trait of Florence Avenue. Furthermore, the height and bulk of the development and its proximity to the footway is considered harmful to the street scene along Florence Avenue. To conclude, the site proposes a residential dwelling within flood zone 3. Therefore, the application is required to pass the sequential test. Based on information provided for this application, this has not been passed. Furthermore, the flood risk assessment does not properly assess floodplain storage compensation, failing to demonstrate that the development will not increase flood risk elsewhere. The proposal is considered contrary to the urban grain and pattern of development in the vicinity. While the sustainability credentials in design in achieving Passive House standard of a dwelling are noted, the benefits of the scheme are not considered to outweigh the significant harm identified pursuant to flood risk and character of the surrounding area. The recommendation is therefore to refuse planning permission for the reasons set out in the main report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Just before I go to the Speaker, Phil Williams, Councillor Hill had to leave the meeting because he's just realised this one he's got a registered interest in. So if you're wondering why he's left the room, that's why. So, so if I could go to Phil Williams, please. Yeah, the right button. You're live, and when you're ready, you've got 3 minutes from when you start. Thank you.
Good evening, members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. The 2 key elements that I'd like to sort of talk about at the start are, this is a brownfield site in a sustainable location, and if you approve it, it will deliver a passive house designed to the highest environmental standards. The revised scheme is designed to respond to the previous refusal reasons in terms of design and scale. The new dwelling features photovoltaic panels and ground source heat pumps supporting low energy use and reduced carbon emissions. This aligns with the sustainability SPD and your local plan policies.
The development delivers a net gain of 1 dwelling, a modest but valuable contribution to housing land supply. It makes efficient use of previously developed land consistent with the NPPF and policy HO2. Importantly, officers have confirmed that there's no unacceptable impact on light, outlook, privacy. There's 1 on-street parking space provided with retained parking for 6 and 8 Florence Avenue. And as the officer said, the access has been considered in the previous appeal. There's no harm to protected species, retention of mature trees, new planting, and there's scope for a biodiversity net gain. I want to address the officer's points directly. He refers to prominently 2-storey area. This isn't all 2-storey. At the end of the road, there's larger dwellings, but we are proposing a 2-storey building, so it's very much in character. There's not a conservation area. The design and access statement sets out the changes how the road and the area has evolved over time. It talks about the urban grain
1
and
minute remaining.
how development has changed. Remember, this is replacing a garage of limited merit, and the design is a clear improvement. If the borough wants to embrace modern and sustainable development, then it needs to consider projects like this. The officer refers to the Environment Agency response. While the site lies in flood zone 3, the proposal has the potential to improve drainage and reduce hard standing. These benefits can be secured by condition to ensure there's no flood risk elsewhere. The sequential and exception tests have been carried out thoroughly when reviewing directly comparable sites. Even where a sequential test is debated, case law confirms that this doesn't automatically warrant refusal. The flood risk assessment supports a resilient and appropriate solution. In summary, this is a sustainable development that delivers housing, minimises impacts, and exceeds environmental standards. We welcome your consideration of the proposal.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak on this? I'm opening it up to the floor now. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Chair. I'll kick off. Thank you, Phil. And I mean, there's a lot for me to like here. I agree it's a brownfield sustainable location. There's benefits and harms again, as there always are. I obviously read the paper carefully. The big harm is the flood risk. And the biggest benefit is the eco credentials of the design, the fantastic credentials there. I don't know how many other passive house dwellings we have in Maidenhead, but I doubt there's that many. And if we were going to give consent, I think we need to look carefully at conditions. I mean, there's a lot of conditions recommended in the reports, and to me, they all seem valid and necessary. Anti-glare panels, B&G plans submitted and approved prior to commencement. There's at least half a dozen. But I'm going to be completely honest, I feel like it's very hard for me to make a positive determination here, to go along with one, because of the way the application's progressed. So we've got unsolicited amended site plans coming in after the application's been validated. And the additional flood details, again, they're too late for proper consideration by officers and the EA. I mean, I feel like a PPA or something like that is maybe the right forum for back and forth if you're going to have it, but otherwise we need everything in the application. So, I mean, I will wait to hear, what colleagues say before I make up my mind, but for me, that's my initial lean. Thank you.
Douglas, do you want to add anything, Councillor Waters?
Many other colleagues here, are there?
I mean, from my perspective, the bit that I love the building, I love the whole idea of a passive house. The bit that's concerning me is the flood zone bit. But one thing I didn't even consider, there is a building there already, and the speaker mentioned that would improve drainage with this building. So I just wanted to see what the officer's take would be on that. I mean, I know it's flood zone 3 and the policy's strong on that. So I would love your feedback, really.
Yes, so I mean, we've got a formal objection from the Environment Agency at the moment. The applicant's position is on the basis there's a building there that will impede the flood water in any event, and by making the building smaller, it makes it better. The formal response we've got from the Environment Agency doesn't accept that a garage would be designed to a specification that would prevent the entrance of flood water, and therefore doesn't accept that there would be a betterment there based on the information that we have in the application and what the Environment Agency have commented on. So that's the formal stance that we've received back from the Environment Agency with regard to that position.
I mean, one thing I did note that the house appears to be at a higher level on the actual living areas where the carport's lower. So I mean, obviously, that says to me that the house itself might be at low risk, but it was more the impact side of things, how that would affect things. But the Environment Agency have said objection due to submission of an inadequate flood risk assessment. I mean, is it something that we could consider deferring until that comes in, and perhaps so? Just throwing ideas out there at the moment.
I mean, I would always say we've got a duty to consider planning applications, and we shouldn't be deferring them to ask for additional information to try and address things and make them okay. I mean, there is obviously, if we make a decision, the option of a resubmission if an applicant wants to provide more information, but.
Yeah. Thank you. So it's the bit I'm struggling with. I don't feel I've got enough information to make a valid decision, because half of me really likes the idea of a passive house. The other half of me is struggling with obviously the flood zone, you know, and that's where I'm sat. Councillor Walters.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. It is difficult, isn't it, to fly in the face of the EA recommendation, and it is flood, zone 3, and the two parts of the exception test also go against it. So that's my view. The two exceptions which are allowed go against it as well.
Yeah. That's sort of like,
Yeah.
So, I mean, the applicant has we want them to have an opportunity to show how they would satisfy the Environment Agency. The question really is what's the appropriate way forward there, and I think that resubmission is the appropriate way forward. It's absolutely not, I think, at least from my perspective or from your perspective, Sean, that we don't like this design. This is a beautiful design. It's fantastic passive house. But those flood objections need to be addressed. And what is the right way of doing that? Is it deferral and the borough bearing the burden of that and the cost and officer time, or is it for the applicant to resubmit properly, to do it correctly with all the information up front? And for me, I mean, I'm just going to say I do think that resubmission is the way forward, and I think we should refuse tonight. So I'm going to propose that.
So you're proposing to refuse on the basis of resubmitting the application for more information?
Objections have not been addressed. I mean, it's up to the applicant whether they would like to resubmit. That seems to me to be the appropriate way of addressing these concerns.
I mean, now we're obviously talking about the sort of exception test side of things. The first thing we need to consider is whether the sequential test has been passed, and officers are considering that it hasn't. If we consider it hasn't been passed, then we don't go on to assess the exceptions test. So the matters that you're raising in terms of the EA comments, they're about the exceptions test. So whether there's any flood compensations required, whether the floor levels of the building have been raised to address their sort of secondary issues. The first point is the sequential test passed? And the recommendation is no, that it hasn't. Therefore, we don't go on to the exceptions test.
Right. Thank you for clarifying. Before I go back to Councillor Douglas, I'll just bring Adrian in quickly, if that's okay.
Yes, I just wanted to come in because I think I just want to be clear from what I've heard in taking things forward, because obviously we've got two reasons for refusal recommended by officers. The debate was indicating an inclination to refuse, but what I was hearing in the debate was potentially that members are only concerned about one of the reasons for refusal and not the other one. So I just think we need to be very clear about that in any motion, because normally we would just say members vote on the officer's recommendation, but if what members are saying is actually you don't agree with refusal reason number one, you only agree with refusal reason number two, that needs to be made very clear, or the decision sets a precedent. So it's just because the debate's progressing in probably a slightly different way to how things normally progress. I think we need that clarity before we proceed.
So would you like me to clarify the motion? Would you like me to clarify the motion, Chair?
If you agree with that, I mean, for me, that's down to you, is that I don't agree with point number one about the design side of things, but I do about the flooding.
Yes, I'm not even sure if I agree entirely with the reason number two as it stands.
Okay.
So we've had a very interesting point from the planning officer, which I totally agree with, which is that but I think I'd be happy to call this in again if it comes to it, because I want the committee to weigh up the benefits and the harms of a fantastic eco home against the potential flood harms in the round. So I am concerned primarily about the impact on the impact that the EA objection addresses, which is to the floodwater containment. Sorry, I'm losing track of the technical words here, but you know what I'm talking about. What would happen with the garage is permeable? I think the applicant's going to argue that they can, but the EA needs to be satisfied with that for us to decide. My personal view from this committee, from the report, is that the other objections are outweighed by the benefits of this dwelling. So I don't know how you'd phrase this, Adrian, but my motion to refuse is based on the EA objection in terms of the flood. It's the capacity, the storage capacity of the site. And also, I mean, also on the issue with the, okay, there's another issue for me, maybe not part of the reasons for rejecting, which is the amended site plan with the footpath around the side. I think, I mean, if we were going to approve it, we would want to condition that, I think, because that's important. But yeah, that's not for the refusal reason.
Did you want to come back on any of that, Adrian? The points that Councillor Douglas raised? The refusal reasons?
I mean, I would simply advise, I think it's clear from the debate that members aren't minded to go with refusal reason number one. I would probably not go too specific on reason for refusal number two, because ultimately there is a judgment there that the members of any subsequent panel will have to take, having regard to the evidence before them at the time, and that's a balanced judgment that panel will have to take, because the sequential test, you need to be satisfied that there's no other sites available. The exceptions test, you effectively have to weigh all of the benefits of the development against the harm, and you don't know the harm unless you have the flood risk assessment and you know what it says. So I'd probably suggest that we keep reason for refusal fairly high level and vague, and note that the application site is within flood zone 3A, and that on the information at the moment, we're not satisfied that it would be safe. But I probably wouldn't go any more specific, because I do think that we need more evidence. You'd need more evidence in the subsequent application, and you'd need the views of the EA, and you need to give whichever members are sitting on the committee when that comes back the ability to consider it.
Okay, so I mean, if it does come back to committee in a similar form, I may have a different view at the time, but for now I'm happy to go with the condition two as it stands. Sorry, reason two for refusal. Yeah.
To say, I can't disagree with what the planning officer suggests. It seems a fair way of doing it.
Is that, are you seconding?
Yes.
And you're happy with refusing reason two?
Yes.
Refuse the appeals secondly.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so then we have a motion on the table to refuse the planning application for the second reason outlined in the committee report, proposed by councillor Douglas, seconded by councillor Waters. I'll take a vote on if councillors are for refusal, against refusal, or abstaining from the vote. Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Martin.
For.
Councillor Waters.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair, so the motion carries and the planning permission is refused.
Now to the final agenda item, which is planning appeals received and the decision report. Are we happy to note that? You happy with that, councillor Douglas?
Absolutely happy. I just wanted to note, you know, there's, I don't know, is it 5 or 6? Every single one of them is, you know, dismissed at appeal. It just shows what a great job our officers are doing at, you know, knocking these back. Yeah, I wish we could claim costs from all of them, but I know we can't. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback. Are you happy with that, councillor Waters, appeals?
Hang on,
Last agenda item.
the green ones. Oh, yes, yeah, I remember that.
Happy with that?
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Douglas?
Now, look, I don't know if this can be considered or not. On the subject of appeals, actually referring back to the previous item, if the applicant chooses to appeal, do we have the opportunity to apply for costs?
Oh, don't talk about that now. No.
I'm asking a technical question of the head of planning.
We would always have the opportunity to apply for costs, but we would only be able to do it in line with procedural guidance. So we would only do that if there was reason to believe we would be successful.
Yes. Can I just ask that officers can take it into consideration and look at it and make the right decision? Thank you.
We will always consider it if there's a reason to do so.